So if you can hear a slight weird muffly shuffling sound, that would be the beanbag that's beneath me. Professional setup. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. How's it going? I hope you're doing really well. There is a cat hair in my coffee. That's disgusting. A couple of things that are slightly hindering my filming process today. Number one, as you can probably hear, I'm a bit gross and full of cold, so apologies for that. We're all friends here, right? Second thing is that the cat, my cat Flo, seems to perfectly know the exact moment that she should wake up from her slumber and start wandering around and jingling her bell and attacking my feet and generally getting involved with everything that's going on. She's been peacefully asleep for the last like 3 hours, and as soon as I hit the record button, here she comes. So there'll probably be a cat involved in this scenario at some point. We're on coffee number 3 of the day, so words are happening before I can really form them properly in my head. And I also feel like I've made this cupboard like look particularly mysterious and inviting just behind me here. Like it might lead to something particularly interesting, but it doesn't. It leads to the Christmas decorations and my bag of Halloween costumes. But anyway, despite all that, I fancy clicking the camera on and having a little chat today because basically I put myself on a book buying ban for the foreseeable future. The reason being that my current pile of books that I have bought recently that I intend to read is getting slightly out of control, and we do live in quite a small house. I need to rein it in a little bit, I need to calm down, and I need to just enjoy things without being a crazy person. It's not official, it's not legally binding. If something catches my eye, I mean, who's to say I might not break this vow, but we're gonna give it a go. I told you, this would inevitably happen. What are you doing? You have impeccable timing. I've basically made a little vow to myself that I won't be buying any more books until I've read at least the majority of this pile. And we'll try and work out what the majority is. I'm going to say it's maybe 6 or 7 books before I start treating myself to anything else. Okay, first up, this is one that I picked up when I went to work in the Waterstones cafe one day, which is a dangerous game to play for my bank balance, let me tell you. I sit down and do my work, and then on the way out I spend all the money that I just earned. So this is the new Stacey Hall's book, which is called Mrs. England. I literally didn't know this existed, so as soon as I saw it on the book table I was like, yoink. Somehow I totally missed the memo on this one coming out, so it was a really nice surprise to see it, because I've previously read 2 others by her. I don't know if that's all she's ever done, but I've definitely read 2. I've read The Foundling and The Familiars, and Stacey Hall's is my perfect kind of historical fiction. I feel like there's real kind of magic laced between her words. I really, really love her books. Not to mention, my perfect formula is a green book with gold foil. When it comes to covers, if I see that, it's going straight in the bag. This one is set in the 1900s. We're in 1904 in West Yorkshire for this one, and it's all about a newly graduated nurse who takes up a position to look after the children of a kind of rich and powerful couple. And there's something very strange going on with this beautiful and mysterious Mrs. England that she works for. So that sounds right up my street. Who doesn't love a dark and mysterious rich lady in the 1900s? That's what I'm here for. And I just spotted a quote on the back as well, which says, "As treacherous and invigorating as the moors." What an amazing quote. I'm in. Next up we have You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. A couple of these books are titles that I've basically been brainwashed into wanting to read because I've seen so much about them on Instagram and TikTok. Here we have a prime example of that. The tagline for this one is 2 best friends, 10 summer trips, their last chance to fall in love. Sounds absolutely delightful. 12 summers ago, Poppy and Alex meet. They hate each other and are pretty confident they'll never speak again. 11 summers ago, they're forced to share a ride home from college, and by the end of it, a pact is formed. Every year, 1 vacation together. Sounds like a bit of a rash pact to me, but you go for it, guys. I think various cute things ensue through the summers following that, but then 2 summers ago, it all goes wrong. This summer, Poppy asked Alex to join her on one last trip. Could this trip make them realise they're not just friends after all? I think it might do. Don't know about you. I got a feeling. I like to pick up a little kind of easy read romance every now and again because I just think they're really fun to read. And they're not like my absolute favourite kind of book to pick up, but I think it's nice to have a nice little light-hearted read every once in a while, and this is definitely going to be one of those, I think. Of all the books in this pile, this genuinely might be the one that I am most excited to read, or maybe the second most excited to read. This is Cersei by Madeline Miller. Oh, if I can just like rub my hands together with glee. So this was another complete no-brainer purchase for me, because having absolutely adored Song of Achilles so much, it's become like a beloved book to me. And I just got this little inkling that I'm maybe gonna love this one even more than I loved Song of Achilles, because not only is it going to be Madeline Miller's beautiful writing style, which I'm just head over heels in love with, but it also involves a little bit of witchcraft, which is my jam. So in the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. Cersei is strange, not powerful and terrible like her father, nor gorgeous and mercenary like her mother, but she has a dark power of her own. Witchcraft. And I think basically when the gods decide that her powers could be a bit of a threat to their own power, she's banished from the kingdom, she's sent to this kind of remote island all by herself, and it's there that she decides to really perfect her craft and explore her powers for herself. Among her island guests is an unexpected visitor, the mortal Odysseus. You know him, old Odie. I cannot express how excited I am to read this. It's going straight to the top of the pile, to be honest. Can we also talk about this gorgeous bronze cover? I'm absolutely here for everything about this. And I can't wait. Oh, do you know what? The size of this, even when I just pick it up, I'm like, oh no. This absolute doorstop of a book here. This is A Court of Mist and Fury. This is by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the second installment of her ACOTAR series. A Court of Thorns and Roses is the first book, and this is what you come to next. It's a hefty read. I don't love enormous books, honestly. I mean, I have very puny arms. My upper body strength is almost non-existent. If I had to hoist myself over a wall during a zombie apocalypse, I would probably just wave goodbye. But I will do it for the sake of some for the sake of some sexy fairies. Can't really say too much about this one because if I kind of delve into the plot of this one, it's going to give away some things that happen at the end of the first book. So I won't do that in case anyone's tempted to dive into this fantasy series. And from what I've heard from you guys, the messages that I've had about this series, this is the one that kind of hooks you under the ribs and pulls you into this series. So I'm looking forward to reading it, if not slightly daunted by it. Book one is a little bit slow. There's a lot of kind of like world building and scene setting for a lot of the book, but it really steps up a notch for the final kind of quarter maybe, and it becomes that kind of exciting adventure fantasy that you want when you dive into a book like this. So I'm hoping that now everything's been kind of put in place and created for the reader, this one will be able to push that a little bit further. I'm gonna take a guess and say that this one's gonna be a little bit darker, a little bit steamier. I think the bad boy is probably going to play more of a part in this one. I have also promised a few people as well that this is the book that I'm going to choose for my first ever reading vlog, to let you know how I get on with it. So I'll catch you then. Until then, A Court of Mist and Fury. I appreciate the love very much, but I'm a little bit busy right now, so if we could revisit this in maybe an hour's time or so? Is that okay? Thank you. In one of my last to be or not TBR videos, when I mentioned that I'd read The Secret History and how much I'd enjoyed that and how I found it to be kind of like a reading experience rather than just a story, a lot of you guys said if I loved that one so much then I should totally try this, which is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Let me find, oh yeah, this is The Secret History here by Donna Tartt. There's a few similarities there, so I think they're really kind of harking back to this one, which honestly fills me with anticipation. I cannot wait to read this because, as I said, The Secret History was such an experience for me. It wasn't even so much the plot, or I don't know, I loved the way the tone of the book and the atmosphere while you're reading it reflected the kind of dark contents of it. I thought it was, someone in the comments as well, which I loved, described it as one of their, I think they said a soul book, which is when you read something and it transcends just being like a good book. It's like a soul experience for you, and that is exactly how I felt about The Secret History. So with all that in mind, I obviously cannot wait for this one. There's similar dark academia kind of vibes. Even the plot sounds quite similar, to be honest. It's the same kind of like slightly strange, mysterious gang of friends at college, and their story kind of told by one narrator looking back on his time at college. So it does sound very similar. Oliver Marks has just served 10 years for a murder he may or may not have committed. The detective from his case is just about to retire, so before he leaves the force, he wants to know what really happened. As a young actor, Oliver noticed that his talented classmates seemed to play the same characters on stage and off. Villain, hero, temptress, love that word. When tragedy strikes, one of the 7 friends is found dead. The rest face the greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police and themselves that they are blameless. I am absolutely hooked already just from that blurb. I am so ready to transcend into a little bit of dark academia again, and really get lost in this world. I'm hyped for this one. If you can't already tell, I am hyped. And this one is actually my current read at the moment, so I wasn't sure whether I was going to include it or not, but I bought it pretty recently, and this is the first one that I'm picking off the pile to get through. This is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I didn't realise when I had purchased this, this is actually a reread. I've read this before and I had totally forgotten that I'd ever read it before, but I definitely read it maybe 10 years ago, but I am thoroughly enjoying it. I'm completely addicted to it. I look forward to it every single night. I'm picking it up like in the afternoon when I've got 15 minutes to myself. It's that kind of book where you kind of treat yourself to a little 20 minutes with a cup of coffee when you possibly can. Practical Magic, if you haven't read the book, if you haven't already read the book and didn't even realise that you have read the book, I'm guessing you might be familiar with the movie, which is a 90s classic. It is so beloved to me. It is one of my all-time favourite films. It's Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, who, by the way, in that movie, Nicole Kidman's hair is god tier, absolute dream goals. I think if I was going to have any hair in the whole wide world, I would pick Nicole Kidman's hair in Practical Magic. Anyway, slight sidetrack there. If you are familiar with the film, and maybe you love the film just as much as I do, keep in mind that this story is somewhat different from the story that is presented in the movie. So maybe don't go into the book expecting that exact story, because I think that will hinder your reading experience, because you'll be like, hang on a second, that doesn't happen. But if you don't know anything about the plot anyway, as children, sisters Gillian and Sally were forever outsiders in their small New England town, teased, taunted and shunned for the sense of magic that seems to hang in the air around them. Look, if anything could perfectly sum up a story that is going to have a special place in my heart, it's strange sisters, a small New England town, and magic. That's my trifecta right there. Years later, tragedy, and I would say like pushing the boundaries of tragedy as well. It's like an insane scenario plus tragedy brings the sisters back together. They'll find that no matter what else may happen, they'll always have each other. And the thing that I'm really noticing about reading this time around is that I love the aspect of kind of like dark, tongue-in-cheek kind of comedy that this is written with. It's not like overtly funny, but it's just quite sort of dark and dry, and I'm just absolutely loving it. I am currently this far of the way through. Yes, I am a page folder, don't hate me for it. So that's the end of that little stack, but then I also have a few more. This next one, actually these next two were both charity shop finds, which I was very pleased with myself for. I would always recommend popping into your local charity shops and checking out the bookshelves that they've got in there, because quite often you will find literally like brand new, just released, very popular titles in there, because people buy books and get rid of them as a constant cycle. Turns out not everyone is a hoarder like me. I was absolutely delighted, with a capital D hyphen lighted, to find this in mine, because this has been on my list for ages. This is The Good Immigrant, and I think this is one of those books where it's quite frankly a bit of a crime that I have actually never got around to reading this one. It has been on my list for such a long time. My friend Kate recommended it to me ages ages ago actually. I finally have it, so I'm finally gonna get stuck in with it. This is basically a collection, an anthology, I guess, of 21 essays and mini essays. It's edited by Nikesh Shukla, but it's all different authors and writers that are exploring what it means to be Black, Asian and minority ethnic in Britain today. And it basically just brings together a ton of really insightful voices to explore what the immigrant experience is today. What's it like to live in a country that doesn't trust you and doesn't want you unless you win an Olympic gold medal or a national baking competition. I'm expecting it to be a bit of a difficult read at times. I'm expecting it to be very moving, but I think it will also be very kind of insightful and honest, and I think there'll be some kind of joyful and funny stories in there. And I've just heard such amazing things about this. It's constantly kind of admired and acclaimed, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Mallory Blackman says it's phenomenal, so you know it's gonna be good. And my other charity shop find was the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I was kind of buzzing when I spotted this on the shelf because I've seen a lot about it, but I have been burned by TikTok book recommendations in the past, and as this one says on the cover, it is indeed a TikTok sensation, so much so that it gets its own little TikTok sticker. But this is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, a New York Times bestseller. I'm gonna go into it with a fully open mind. I don't like to go into books thinking, I don't think this is going to be very good. I like to go in thinking, this is going to surprise me. And I had the perfect example experience of that recently. I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which was another TikTok book. And I went into that, the first few chapters, I was like, this is going to be garbage. About halfway through, I was like, hang on a second. This is surprising me. And that is why I always finish books. It was the prime example of why I always finish a book. Anyway, I'm rambling. So because I kind of learned that lesson with It Ends With Us and it really surprised me, I'm gonna really make sure that I go into everything similar with a very open mind. So I will make sure to do this with The Love Hypothesis. The premise is that there's two hot young scientist professors. The girl is called Olive, and I don't know why, but she needs a fake boyfriend, and a young hotshot professor, Adam, decides that he will agree to be her fake boyfriend. I'm guessing they might surprisingly really fall in love, which, to be fair, is one of my like guilty pleasure favourite tropes. Olive soon discovers that the only thing more complicated than a hypothesis on love is putting her own heart under the microscope. Sounds kind of gross. I had to do that to a pig heart once at school. I promise we are nearly there. This is another cracker actually. I didn't realise this one was quite so massive. This is The Once and Future Witches, another spontaneous Waterstones purchase. This is by Alex E. Harrow. Was this cover something that I quite frankly couldn't leave behind? Perhaps. But then I did also read the blurb, so it wasn't entirely just because of the pretty cover. And the particular thing about this blurb, which caught my eye, which I was like, yes, tick that box, coming home with me, is that this combines a little bit of witchy witchcraft with the suffragists. Tell me more. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be, in the wild, dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it in the ballot box. When the Eastwood sisters join the suffragists of New Salem, they begin to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Absolutely sucked me in. Cannot wait for this one. I'm also... this is a small detail, but I'm also quite excited about these very dramatic part 1, part 2, part 3 black pages. I love a bit of drama. This was a bit of a random spontaneous one, but there is a story behind this. So in my last To Be or Not TBR, I featured The Amazing Mr. Blunden, which was an old kind of childhood story. It's a kid's book, which was kind of very, very nostalgic from my childhood. It felt very kind of comforting and a real treat for my inner child to sit and read that. And obviously children's books are just... I mean, children's books arguably better than adult books, but anyway. And so a couple of weeks ago when I went to the theatre with my mum to see Bedknobs and Broomsticks, it's a new Disney musical which is currently touring the UK. I'm guessing it will probably come to London at some point. I went up to see it in Liverpool with my mum because Bedknobs and Broomsticks is like a very precious film to my family, and like I grew up watching that film, and my mum mentioned that she'd read it before and really enjoyed the book. So I picked it up. So this will just be like a nice couple of cups of coffee on a Sunday morning kind of book. But I just quite fancied reading it because it's such a lovely story. Although my mum has said that the book is basically completely different from the 70s Disney film that we all know and love and know all the songs to. I think this will be a nice, gentle, cozy, rainy morning kind of comfort read. And I think we all need one of those every once in a while. It's definitely good for the soul. I highly recommend like rereading your favourite childhood faves. It's a heart mender for sure. You will probably recognise this one. Do you know what I really need to do is that I need to take, someone commented on a video actually like, please take off the buy one get one half price stickers off your books, but I'm always really nervous that they're gonna leave a stickiness. Look, that's why I never do it. Ah, I've absolutely screwed the pooch there. I will come back to this. I will not try and do this on camera. This is Detransition Baby. This is by Tori Peters, and this is another one that I have just seen everywhere and felt like I was really missing out. I think this is quite like an important modern read, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck in with it. A uniquely trans take on love, motherhood, and those exes who you just can't quit. Reese nearly had it all: a loving relationship with Amy, an apartment in New York, a job she didn't hate. She'd scraped together a life previous generations of trans women could only dream of. The one thing missing was a child. Then everything fell apart, and 3 years on, Reese is still in self-destruct mode. When her ex calls to ask if she wants to be a mother, Reese finds herself intrigued. After being attacked in the street, Amy detransitioned to become Ames, changed jobs, and thinking he was infertile, started an affair with his boss, Katrina. Now Katrina's pregnant. Could the three of them form an unconventional family and raise a baby together? When I tell you I have seen endless good reviews for this from people I follow, most on Instagram actually, I have a feeling it's going to be a great mix between like wickedly funny and also like heartbreakingly sad. I'm so ready for a roller coaster of emotion. I saw somewhere actually someone described this as like a modern version of Sex and the City, and all the reviews on the back are like exhilaratingly good. I loved this book. If I had the ability to momentarily wipe my memory, I'd use it to reread Detransition Baby for the first time. Detransition Baby is the first great trans realist novel. I'm just super intrigued by this and I'm really excited to give it a go. And last, but certainly not least, in fact, in the top 3 of the books that I'm going to read first in this pile, by Michelle Zauner, this is Crying in H Mart. This is a dang hardback. That's when you know I'm excited about a book. I don't even wait for the paperback to come out. Can we talk about this beautiful cover? I love this like minimalist illustration style and this gorgeous, like, it's almost neon. So the general premise of this one is that it's actually a memoir, and I think it mostly focuses on the relationship between the author and her mother, who is Korean. And I was particularly intrigued as well because I think one of the kind of main themes that runs through this, there's a lot of exploration of like family and grief, but I think food is also like a really important like flowing theme through a lot of the memoir stories that she shares. As she grew up, moving to the East Coast for college, performing gigs with her band, and meeting the man who would become her husband, her Koreanness begins to feel ever more distant, even as she found the life she wanted to live. It was her mother's diagnosis with terminal pancreatic cancer when Zauner was 25 that forced a reckoning with her identity and brought her to reclaim the gifts of taste, language, and history her mother had given her. I'm obviously gonna cry. It just sounds like it's gonna be really beautiful and poignant and moving, and I just think this will be something a little bit different for me. There's nothing else like this in this pile. I never really kind of reach for memoirs, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I know it's meant to be absolutely brilliant, so I'm looking forward to experiencing it. And that let's see if I can try and pick up this pile because it's actually embarrassing. This is everything I've got to get through before I can buy anything else. Hear my cry, that is a promise. Well, promise is actually a very strong word. I'm gonna say it's a goal, and I'm gonna wait for the comments section, which is hopefully gonna be full of you guys telling me that this is actually a very small TBR pile, and actually yours is completely taking over your home, and that's going to make me feel a whole lot better. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hopefully there will be a title or two in here that might appeal to you. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you're excited for me to get stuck in with any of them. Let me know which of them should be jumping to the top of the pile that I need to read ASAP. Oh, and also before I forget, I will make sure to link my Goodreads and my page on the story graph in the description box down below. So if you want to keep up to date with what I'm reading at the moment, you can follow me on either of those platforms. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!